Think about the last time something went wrong. Not a small inconvenience, something real. A relationship that ended badly, a financial situation that collapsed, an opportunity that disappeared at exactly the wrong moment. Now think about the time before that. Different circumstances, different people, different details. But the same feeling at the end, the same outcome, the same specific flavor of loss or limitation or disappointment. You have felt this before. Not once, multiple times. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a thought you have never said out loud, is the quiet suspicion that these are not separate events, that there is a thread connecting them, that you are somehow producing this. That thought is correct, and understanding exactly how is going to change the way you see every pattern in your life that you have never been able to break. Robert Collier documented something in 1926 that explains this with a precision most people find uncomfortable. He called it the most misunderstood mechanism in all of human experience. Not because it is complicated, because it requires you to look at something most people spend their entire lives looking away from. I am going to show you what he documented, but first, the mechanism itself. Because without the mechanism, the principle sounds like everything else you have already heard. And you will nod, and nothing will change. Here is what most people believe about the repeated patterns in their life. They believe the patterns are caused by circumstances, by other people, by bad timing, by factors outside themselves, and so they change the circumstances, change the people around them, change the timing, change the environment, and the pattern returns. Different container. Collier spent years studying why this happens, not theoretically, by examining real lives, real outcomes, real patterns over real time. And what he found was this: the patterns of a man's life are not produced by his circumstances. They are produced by his broadcast. Not his choices, not his decisions, not his effort, not his intentions, his broadcast. And the exterior reality, every person, every circumstance, every opportunity, every obstacle, is simply the reflection of that broadcast. Faithful, precise, mathematical. Without judgment, without agenda, without exception. The source I am drawing from today, Collier's original work, is in the description. Free, but stay, because what comes next is the part that makes everything you have lived suddenly make sense. Here is the mechanism Collier documented. He called it the law of correspondence. As within, so without. Not as a spiritual idea, as a law of physics. What you broadcast from your interior, your beliefs, your emotional baseline, your deepest unexamined assumptions about yourself and the world, must appear in your exterior reality. Always. Not sometimes. Not usually. Not when conditions are right. Always. But here is where most people misunderstand this law. They think the broadcast is what they consciously believe, what they affirm, what they tell themselves, what they are working toward. Collier was precise about this. He wrote, "The exterior reality does not respond to what a man says he believes. It responds to what his nervous system broadcasts as normal. His nervous system, not his conscious mind, his nervous system. The signal running beneath thought, beneath intention, beneath everything he is consciously trying to do. And that signal, the one the nervous system broadcasts as the baseline of what is real, is what the exterior reality has been reflecting every single day of his life." If this is landing differently than anything you have heard before, hit the like. Now stay. Because we are going somewhere most people never reach. Think about what this actually means for the patterns in your life. The financial pattern, the ceiling you keep approaching and pulling back from, is not produced by your financial decisions. It is the exterior reflection of what your nervous system broadcasts as normal about money, about what you can hold, about what people like you have access to. The relationship pattern, the same dynamic with different faces, is not produced by the people you choose. It is the exterior reflection of what your nervous system broadcasts as normal about connection, about what you can expect, about what you deserve. The opportunity pattern, why certain kinds keep appearing and certain kinds seem invisible, is the exterior reflection of what your nervous system broadcasts as the range of what is possible for someone like you. Collier wrote, "A man does not attract what he wants, he attracts what he broadcasts, and what he broadcasts is almost never what he consciously desires. It is what his interior, at the level below conscious thought, accepts as simply true. This is why wanting something more does not change the pattern, because wanting is conscious, and the broadcast is not. The broadcast runs underneath, constant, automatic. invisible to the person producing it, but completely visible in its exterior reflection, which is the life around him, which has always been the life around him, until the broadcast changes. Now here is where it becomes precise. Collier did not just document the law, he documented the 3 layers that together produce the broadcast. Understanding all 3 is what makes change not just possible, but inevitable. Layer 1, the belief layer. This is the most obvious layer, the one most people work on when they try to change their patterns. Their conscious beliefs about money, relationships, their own capacity, what is possible. And Collier acknowledged this layer matters, but he documented something most people find uncomfortable. He said the belief layer is the weakest of the 3. Not because beliefs are unimportant, because conscious beliefs can be completely contradicted by the deeper layers. And when they are contradicted, the belief layer loses. Every time. This is why someone can work genuinely and sincerely on their beliefs, and watch the exterior pattern produce the same experiences it always has. Not because the work was wrong, because the deeper layers were broadcasting something different, and the exterior reality was responding to all 3. Layer 2, the emotional baseline. This is deeper than belief, and harder to change. Your emotional baseline is not how you feel right now. It is the frequency your nervous system has come to treat as home, the emotional state that feels normal, that feels like rest. Even if that state is anxiety, even if that state is scarcity, even if that state is the low-grade sense that things are fundamentally difficult. Collier documented that the nervous system does not distinguish between comfort and positive emotion. It distinguishes between familiar and unfamiliar. And whatever emotional state has been most consistently present, regardless of whether it is pleasant, becomes the baseline, becomes what the nervous system works to return to. Even when the conscious mind is trying to move away from it, this is why people can experience genuine breakthroughs, real moments of expansion, real experiences of abundance, and watch those experiences contract back to the old pattern. Not because the breakthrough was false, because the nervous system treated the new state as unfamiliar and worked automatically, below the level of conscious awareness, to return to what it recognized as home. Imagine someone who has spent years telling themselves they deserve love and keeps finding themselves in the same kind of relationship. The belief is genuine, but the emotional baseline, the quiet, familiar frequency that feels like home, is still broadcasting something different, something the belief layer has never reached. And the exterior reality keeps reflecting the baseline, not the belief 3, the assumption layer. This is the deepest and the most powerful, and the one most people have never examined, not because it is hidden, but because it is so present, so fundamental to how they experience everything, that it does not feel like an assumption at all. It feels like fact. The assumption layer is not what you believe. It is not how you feel. It is what you have never thought to question. The things that are so basic to how you experience reality, that they exist below the level of thought. Things like, people like me don't have that kind of life. Money always runs out eventually. Good things come with a cost. I have to work twice as hard to get half as much. These do not feel like beliefs. They feel like observations, like things you have simply noticed to be true about the world, about your world specifically. But Collier documented that every one of these is an assumption operating as fact, and that assumptions operating as facts produce the most consistent, most powerful broadcast of all, because they run without interruption, without the fluctuations that beliefs and emotions create, without doubt, without hope, without the moments of shift that conscious work produces. Just constant, steady, faithful, broadcasting the same signal moment after moment for years, decades sometimes, and the exterior reality, which reads the broadcast, not the effort, reflects it with perfect accuracy, as the texture of daily life, as what simply is. Collier wrote, "The most powerful broadcast is the one the man does not know he is making. Because he has never considered that it could be otherwise. He does not think money is hard. He simply experiences money as hard. He does not think people disappoint. He simply notices people as disappointing. He does not think opportunities are not for him. He simply observes that they do not appear. The assumption layer is the water he swims in, invisible because it is everywhere, and the exterior reality reflects it back as the texture of his life, as what has always been, as what will always be, until the assumption is seen. Before I show you how the broadcast changes, something in the description, what Collier documented about identifying and shifting the assumption layer specifically, the layer running beneath everything else, goes 7 volumes deep. The complete methodology is in the original work, not a summary, not a modern interpretation, the original, free if you are recognizing a specific pattern in your life while listening to this. That link is the map for exactly what is producing it. Description. Free, go there after this. Now, how the broadcast changes. The mechanism of change that Collier documented is not what most people expect. It is not a practice. It is not a technique. It is not something you do for 30 minutes in the morning. It is a shift in perception that changes what the nervous system broadcasts as normal. And it happens through 3 moves. Move 1. Read the reflection, not the circumstances, the pattern. Because the pattern is the readout of the broadcast. Ask yourself, what keeps appearing regardless of what I change? What is the common thread running through experiences that seem unrelated on the surface? What do I keep encountering that I have never been able to explain by the specific circumstances? That is your broadcast. That is what the exterior reality has been faithfully showing you. Not as punishment, as information. The most precise information available about what you are actually transmitting. Imagine someone who keeps finding themselves in situations where their contributions are not recognized. Different jobs, different teams, different contexts, same experience. The temptation is to blame the specific jobs, the specific people, the specific circumstances. But Collier would say, look at the pattern, not the individual instances, the pattern. What is the broadcast that keeps producing this specific experience? What does the nervous system treat as normal about recognition, about worth, about what someone like this can expect from the world? That question, asked honestly, begins to reveal the assumption layer. Move 2, name the assumption as assumption. Not to argue with it, not to replace it with something positive, just to recognize it as assumption, not fact. This is subtle, but it is the most important move, because an assumption operating as fact has the full weight of certainty behind it. It broadcasts with the consistent, uninterrupted confidence of something that is simply true. The moment it is recognized as assumption, even for a second, even with uncertainty, the signal breaks. Not permanently, but the consistency is interrupted, and that interruption is the first crack in a broadcast that may have been running for decades. Collier wrote, a man cannot change what he treats as fact, but the moment he recognizes a fact as assumption, even for a moment, the possibility of change enters. And possibility is all the mechanism requires to begin working differently. Move 3, hold the question, not an affirmation, not a new belief, not a replacement statement. A genuine question. What if this assumption has been selecting for exactly the experiences that confirm it? What if the pattern is not evidence that the assumption is true, but evidence that the assumption has been broadcasting? What if the exterior reality I have been experiencing is not the world, but the reflection of my broadcast? These questions do not demand that you believe anything new. They only ask you to hold open the possibility that what felt like observation might be broadcast, that what felt like the world might be the mirror. And that small opening, that genuine, honest question, begins to shift the nervous system's baseline, not dramatically, not immediately, but in the direction of the question. Because the nervous system treats genuine uncertainty differently from settled fact. Settled fact broadcasts consistently. Genuine uncertainty creates a small opening in the signal, and through that opening, slowly then suddenly, the reflection begins to change. If you recognized a specific pattern in your own life while listening to this, leave one word below, just one word. The thing that keeps appearing. I want to know what this is actually reaching. Now here is what nobody talks about when it comes to changing your broadcast. The exterior reality always lags, always. Collier documented this as one of the most important things to understand about the process. And the thing most people fail to understand at exactly the moment it matters most. When the broadcast begins to change, when the assumption layer starts to crack, when genuine uncertainty enters what was previously settled fact, the exterior reality does not immediately follow. It keeps reflecting the old broadcast for a period, sometimes weeks, sometimes months. Because the exterior reality has momentum, it is the accumulated echo of years of consistent broadcasting, and echoes take time to fade, Collier wrote. The man who changes and looks immediately for your change in his life will find none, and in finding none he will conclude the law does not work, and return to his old broadcast, and the exterior reality, which was already beginning to shift, will stabilize back into the old pattern. He will have been one step from a different life, and walked away. This is the most common failure in the entire process, not the inability to change the broadcast, the inability to sustain the change through the lag. The lag is not evidence of failure. The lag is logistics. The exterior reality is rearranging. People, circumstances, opportunities, all of which have their own timelines, are beginning to move in response to the new signal. But matter moves slowly, and the man who understands this does not check the reflection to see if the broadcast has been received. He knows it has been received, because the law is not optional. The exterior always reflects the interior, always. His only task is to hold the new broadcast steady through the period when the old reflection is still showing. And when the new reflection appears, as it always does, as it must, as it is mathematically certain to, it will not feel like a miracle. It will feel like inevitability, because it is. Here is the piece that ties everything together. Nothing in your life has been random. Not the people who keep appearing, not the situations that keep reconstructing, not the ceiling you keep approaching, not the pattern you have tried to change through different choices. Every one of those patterns has been the exterior reality, doing exactly what it does, reflecting the broadcast, faithfully, precisely, without judgment, without exception. And the broadcast, the specific signal producing the specific patterns in your specific life, was formed through experience, through repetition, through assumptions that solidified into facts about how reality works, about what is possible for you, about what you can expect. Those assumptions are not permanent. They were not always there. They formed at specific moments in response to specific experiences, and then stayed, operating below the level of thought, broadcasting constantly, producing the pattern that you have never been able to explain. The mechanism for changing them is not complicated. Read the reflection, name the assumption, hold the question, and sustain the change through the lag. That is the entire process. Collier documented it in 1926. He said it was the most practical principle he had ever put in writing, not because it is comfortable, because when applied honestly, without shortcuts, without checking the reflection too early, it works. Every time. The complete framework, the specific methodology for identifying the assumption layer in your specific situation, for working through all three layers in the correct sequence, is in the original work, 7 volumes. The link in the description. Free. If you close without going there, you will have the architecture today. The architecture is real, but the methodology for applying it to your specific broadcast, the one producing the specific patterns in your specific life, that requires the depth Collier spent years assembling. It is in the original, not a summary, not a course about Collier. Collier, free. Description. Below, nothing in your life has ever been random. Not then, not now. The broadcast determines the reflection. It always has. And the broadcast can change. Starting with the question you have been afraid to ask. What if the pattern is not telling you something true about the world, but something precise about your broadcast? That question, held honestly, without rushing to answer it, is where it begins. Collier documented what comes after. It is in the description. Waiting. Here is something concrete about what the lag actually looks like. Because most people know it abstractly, change takes time, but they do not know what to expect specifically, and not knowing what to expect is what causes most people to abandon the process at exactly the wrong moment. The first thing that happens when the broadcast begins to shift is not that the exterior gets better. It is that the exterior gets louder. The old pattern, the one that has been reflecting the old broadcast, seems to intensify briefly. The financial difficulty that was present before may feel more present. The relationship pattern that was operating quietly may become more visible. The ceiling that was there may feel lower. Most people interpret this as the change not working, as the new broadcast having no effect, as evidence that the assumption they named was not the real one, and they return to the old broadcast. Collier documented this moment as the critical one. He called it the intensification before the shift. He wrote, "When the broadcast begins to change, the exterior reality does not quietly rearrange. It presents the old pattern one final time, with more intensity, as if testing whether the new broadcast will hold. This is not the universe punishing you. This is momentum. The old pattern has been running for years. It has its own weight. And wait, when disturbed, does not simply stop, it pushes back. And the person who understands this, who recognizes the intensification, not as failure, but as the final pressure of an old pattern losing its hold, stays with the new broadcast, holds the question, sustains the change, and passes through into a different reflection. The person who does not understand it interprets the intensification as proof that nothing works, returns to the old broadcast, and the old pattern stabilizes as reliably as ever. Collier was direct about this. He said, "Most people give up precisely when the mechanism is working hardest. Not because they are weak, because they did not know what the working looked like. Now you know. When the pattern intensifies after you have begun to shift the broadcast, that is the mechanism working. That is the old reflection losing its source signal and making noise about it. Hold the new broadcast. Stay with the question. Let the intensification pass. Because on the other side of it, when the old pattern runs out of the signal it has been fed for years, the reflection begins to change. Not gradually, all at once. The way a room changes when you turn on a light, not inch by inch, instantly, because the darkness was never a thing, it was an absence. And the light, the new broadcast, the changed baseline, the assumption recognized as assumption, does not slowly push the darkness out. It simply replaces it in the moment it arrives. That moment, Collier wrote, is what every person who has ever genuinely changed their broadcast describes the same way. Not as a gradual improvement, as a morning, the feeling of waking up in a different room than the one they went to sleep in. Not because the room changed, because they changed. And the room, the exterior reality, the faithful, precise mirror, reflected that, as it always does, as it always will, because the law is not selective. It does not work for some people and not others. It does not work in some areas of life and not others. It works everywhere, for everyone in every area, without exception. The only variable is the broadcast, and the broadcast is the one thing that has always been yours to change. Not your circumstances, not other people, not luck, not timing. The broadcast, which starts with the assumption, which starts with the question, which starts right now.